Hello, querents. Today's tarot reading is about the coming eclipse season, and so I'm really excited to be able to kind of offer some guidance. We have a partial solar eclipse towards the end of September, and then the total lunar eclipse in the couple weeks in. So this eclipse season is going to be very busy and with a lot of really cool and strong energies, all during Virgo season, and that partial solar eclipse is actually on a Virgo moon as well. So we have the Virgo sun and the Virgo moon. I drew some cute little sun and moon for this, so hopefully it looks okay. I just wanted to show it off because there's not going to be a ton of seeing it, but just so you have the two balances, which is really nice. But yeah, so what I'm really excited about this is that we are going to be looking at a couple different things. We're going to kind of look at what to release. Eclipse season is a great time to let go of old things and let in new things and be able to shed off old skin. This is a great time for transformation and change. So we'll be looking at a lot of that. I'm also really excited because we have invited the angel Uwula to join us, a ministering angel who is invoked by the eclipse, and I'm really excited to have their presence here today and join with me in these readings and to hear their message. And I filmed them before I did this intro, and I'm going to be really honest, I thought they were really good readings. They were very clear and very concise. So some of these are going to be a little shorter, but they're going to be pretty much straightforward, which is really nice. And it was amazing. So that's the thing that's coming up, and I'm really excited about that. Couple little caveats here. These are general readings, so not everything always perfectly applies, but there's a lot of things that overall really work for most people. And sometimes, especially with eclipse season, a lot of this is some deep soul searching and actually being welcome to messages that might not be particularly wanted. So we are probably going to be seeing some resistance and some, no, that's not for me in this. And there's going to be a lot more of actually, hey, listen to it, open up to it a little bit more and see how it goes for yourself. And if you're willing to do that and take that in, which is really nice. I'm really excited about jumping into these. Just a quick plug for myself here. I do private readings. I have my coffee in the description if you are interested, or if you just, found these touching or anything, the tip jar kind of a deal. If you wanted to buy me a coffee or anything like that, that would be extremely sweet and wonderful. Also, if you want private readings, I have a Virgo 33% off in the description. And so I'm really excited, and I've just redone my pricing. So it's a little cheaper than it was. Plus there's that 33% off if you are interested. So I'm really excited. So if you are here for finding out a little bit more about these decks and where to jump to, the description below will have each pile ready for you. But also, we have the Shadowscapes Tarot on the far left, which is a little bit more watercolor art. We have the Mystical Cats Tarot, which, as it suggests, has lots of cats in it. I really love this deck. It's one of my favorites. And another one, honestly, all of these decks are pretty much solid favorites. The Landscapes Tarot, as it suggests, is landscapes. And then we have the Mystical Medleys Tarot, which has this rubber hose animation style to it. I really love this deck in place of just using the standard RWS, but that's probably because I have a love for rubber hose animation. And so certain messages are really good at coming through for me on that particular deck. Without further ado, we are going to get started with the Shadowscapes Tarot, and the rest of you, I'll see you later. Welcome, Shadowscapes Tarot, Pile, and Uwula. Thank you for joining us today. We are going to be looking at the lunar and the solar eclipses at the same time here, and we are going to start off with kind of what should we release during each. This might be a good tie-in for the whole season, and this might be two different time frames. We will kind of see. Yeah, and it feels like it wants to get cut right there. The moon card. Nope, the sun card's somewhere in here. Yep, there. All right. And that's the sun card. Okay. So on the sun side, we have the Wheel of Fortune, and on the moon side, we have the Seven of Swords. Interesting. Okay, so we have change during the solar eclipse. Unsurprisingly, things are about to change, which is a very real thing. I'm going to sit with this card for a moment here because I'm actually a little confused why why Uwula is kind of just communicating just change for us for the Wheel of Fortune. Or I shouldn't say just change. I am trying to figure out what deeper meaning within this Wheel of Fortune we are supposed to be seeing, because often, at least when I read the Wheel of Fortune, is about what's coming and what's changing, and eclipses in general are pretty change worthy. They are going to have a lot of things change, and what might actually be the case here is that your feelings upon change is that we need to be looking at it, and the things that you have thought you should be pattern breaking, or the habits that you've had, you need to be looking at pretty thoroughly. And this is probably going to have something that you at first thought you were okay with, but you are going to have a mindset change, of a mindset turnaround, like a 180 almost, and something for you is not going to be the same anymore. You're not going to have the same feelings. You're not going to feel the same way about it. Yeah. And this is going to be kind of a big deal for you and how you feel about that. So I would recommend, yeah, I'm curious to see what the rest of the cards here say, because the next cards we're going to pull for both sides is going to be about action or your reflection times and what to do, but like change in what aspect is what I'm curious about, because we're probably going to have a big moment of reflection. I do want to look at the lunar eclipse, the Seven of Swords here. And I'm wondering if this actually kind of plays into that change. Now, the interesting thing with the Seven of Swords here is that we see this thief kind of coming in to take a sword, but we don't know, is it really his? Is it not? The swan has a bunch of swords, and we don't know if this thief is taking back what is rightfully theirs, or if the swan is, actually the rightful owner, and this thief is actually a thief kind of a deal. And I think it's very interesting, because I think you're going to realize, because this is a general reading, sometimes there's two sides to this coin. And I think for some of you are going to relate to this thief, and some of you are going to relate to the swan, and some of you are going to have a moment where you realize that things have been stolen from you, and you probably didn't realize it. And this is going to get this would be a good one to sit and take the time and meditation and emotional bandwidth to really sit down and do some deep inner work. If you do shadow work, I would highly recommend doing some shadow work around the Seven of Swords, and that kind of feeling of betrayal and deception. And then for some of you, on that flip side, you're going to realize you've stolen something from someone else, and there's going to be kind of a guilt to that. Yeah, there's going to be some heavy guilt to that, and that can be really hard. And there's going to be steps that will have to be taken to handle that. I'm curious about what cards comes next, because I think that'll be very telling. But yes, I think for both situations here, you need to figure out if you related immediately to the swan or the thief kind of a deal. There's more. Give me one pause here, because there's more in this card that Uwula is trying to tell me. Yes. Okay. For those of you who have had something stolen from you, this pride will come to you. This moment to release your wings is coming. Just so you know. And for those of you who have stolen from others, you have not beaten them down. Yeah. You can at least take that in, is that you did not beat them down. They are still rising high. Just so you're aware. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's a lovely message, though. I like that. So we're going to go into some next cards here for each side. And we're going to look at kind of the action, maybe some reflection points. And we will see here what we get. And it feels like kind of have a couple different piles. Yeah, so this is the solar side, and this is the moon side. Excuse me. And we'll see if I need these piles. I'll keep them separated for now. Okay, so for our change that's coming, we might actually have some help coming along the way, which is going to be really nice. Okay, so it might not actually be help. All right, sorry. There's some really good messages that are coming in here. So with our Knight of Cups, I often think of this person as Prince Charming. And sometimes there's kind of this drive for something that's not really deep and not very emotional. And there might be some surface level things that aren't helpful and that needs to be dived into. So taking the plunge to really figure out some deep matters. Now, this could come in as a person who is willing to help you dive deeper and figure out what change needs to happen, maybe emotionally or within your relationships. But for this card, especially, for some of you, taking that responsibility and understanding that you need professional guidance is a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. And I am not by any means a mental or physical, emotional, anything specialist. So if you know that it sounds correct for you to be able to kind of have that professional help, seek that out at this time. And that might be something that with this wheel of change is that you need to seek out somebody for help. And that person will be able to help you swim. That person's going to be far better than you thought they would be. It's interesting with the Prince Charming thing because this isn't a love thing. It's more of almost like the fiction of it's too good to be true. And I think there is something that you need to be aware of within that of like, hey, sometimes things are too good to be true. So don't let your gut lead you astray. But sometimes things are just as good as they seem. And this is kind of one of those things where you can, get your goal and you are able to achieve the thing that you didn't think was possible. And that power is with you. You have the power to be able to do that, which is really, really awesome. And I'm very excited that there's a lot of emotional energy. Now, I am somewhat concerned within the lunar side is that what might be part of this problem, especially with all these emotions, is that the mental load of it might be really hard. Especially with the solar coming before the lunar, is that this change might be feeling really, really hard. But if we haven't done any of this shadow work, it might not be available to do. But no, I want you to start your wheel of change. So if you feel called to do something, start doing it. Potentially, you just need to leave this video even because we're going to kind of go a little bit deeper now into some more mental stuff. Because the work you're going to have to do is probably going to be very, very hard. And you're going to have to make hard decisions and make very tough choices. There's going to be this kind of loss. And it seems like almost like a loss of self. Like you're not going to feel like it's you still. There's going to be some point of you having... Interesting. Okay. If you are the swan in this Seven of Swords and you are trying to find your freedom from what was stolen from you, it's going to hurt. The process is going to take a while because you have to rehash what was there. You have to kind of relive those moments. You have to revisit that time, and it's going to hurt and tear you apart. But you need to know that you will be able to rebuild and that there will be victory and clarity and like this power. Yeah, a powerful victory that comes after that Ten of Swords, because that Ace of Swords is where we get to go back to again. So we get to go back to the potential of the Ace of Swords, which is this powerful, victorious card. but we have to be willing to kind of deconstruct and lose ourselves a little bit in order to do that. A similar thing with our thief here. If you have hurt others, it's going to have to hurt your pride, but saying you're sorry is important. And you need to take the time to ask for the forgiveness, but know that forgiveness is not for you to decide if it's given to you. You can take all the correct steps and that other person can still say no. And that can hurt. And sometimes even trying to get through the steps of being, could you ever forgive me? Could you even do this process can be very, very hard. And I want you to be able to take that and know that rebuilding that has to happen from this deconstruction will make you stronger. But you do have to allow yourself to get deconstructed in order to rebuild. Again, we have that Ace of Swords coming up. So after this destruction, we will have that power again, that point of conquering of a piece of yourself that was awful and horrible, but you have grown from. But in order to grow, we have to destroy what was so terrible there. So yeah, if therapy is your right thing, if you had thoughts and feelings, writing this down, and potentially if you don't feel like you can comfortably do this alone, therapy might be a really good option. That is something that you have to decide though. Seeking professional help is something that you can definitely do if that feels what you call or like the correct action for you. And so doing that work there. Again, though, this is going to be some deep shadow work from what it seems like. The stuff that you have done, you have to really sit with and be okay with the fact that this is now coming to surface. We are going to see the darkest parts of ourselves within this time. This feels really heavy, so I'm trying to figure out how to transition into our next card, and I don't think I have a good way to. I kind of want to look at the end of this transformation. So if you're really actually willing to take all of this to heart and actually be willing to change, to do this hard work and be willing to put in this work, and know that at the end of it all, because it feels almost like this is the cycle it's going to go, is that you're going to change and it's going to hurt. You're going to realize who or how you've been hurt. And then you're going to realize the pain it takes to fix that. And then you're going to kind of get into this space of almost romanticizing it, but we don't want to fully lose ourselves in the rose tinted glasses. And I'm curious about what kind of the end result, if you're willing to do this work and if you're really willing to dig your heels in, what does the end look like for you, or possibly look like for you, and even a possible future, or possibly even what kind of advice we need. So I'm curious to see, and this card has been kind of calling the entire time that it wishes to be said. Oh, and it's the Tower. Okay. Yeah, this is going to be a big pivotal change for you. And you're probably going to have a lot of stuff come down and you're going to have to rebuild. There's a lot of stuff here. This is not, for some of you, you're probably actually really unsurprised that this is the messages you're hearing, is that you need to change. That's not going to be super surprising for some of you. And some of you might get a little oh, I didn't expect this. But looking back, hindsight is 2020. This is probably going to be one of those things that you are going to look at and go, yeah, that had to get rebuilt in order for me to move on in my life and to have the power in everything I need. And I'm really excited for you. If you're willing to do the work for this, if you're willing to really dive deep within yourself, the power that can come here is so transformative. The Tower card is something that is the beginning of so much good things. And in the cycle of the major arcana, the Star comes after the Tower. So all of this hard work of rebuilding and sometimes brutally having things kind of get deconstructed and fallen apart, and you're probably a little uncomfortable at this point, know that the Star comes after the Tower, and there's this energy of hope and this desire to rebuild. You're gonna be excited once you kind of realize the potential, but we're gonna have to get through this point of fully deconstructing and fully letting everything come back to ground level. And that can be really, really hard. Interestingly, here we do have the cups and swords, and they're opposite elements, and so this mental and emotional, the brain versus heart kind of balance that's going to have to happen is going to be very, very hard, and it's going to be something that you want to be aware of. Allow yourself to have the emotions and the logical side of you. It's okay. I think this is not necessarily in the cards. This is more of my thought process, but like some journaling, some meditating, whatever makes sense, doing art, drawing out your feelings, having some sort of private journal or whatever to allow yourself to just express in your way, to express the things that you are feeling and thinking in a safe way is going to be very important to work through this, I think. And so having all of that is really, really good. I'm really excited for you. If you are a journaler, we're going to be looking at, these big, deep change. Big things that are changing. And then whatever, I hate to say the word trauma, but I think we're going to be kind of looking at some potentially very triggering moments when you start diving into this. And allowing yourself to have the space and the capacity and whatever help you need to be able to do that work is going to be very important. I wish you the best, Shadowscapes Tarot. Thank you so much for joining me, and Uwula, thank you for joining us as well. And I hope that Uwula's guidance during this eclipse is helpful and that your eclipse season goes all right, Shadowscapes pile. Thank you for joining me, Mystical Cats Tarot. And Uwula, I'm very excited that you are here to provide us a message. I did some shuffling off screen, and hopefully you trust me. It just feels right where it is. And so we're going to pull the cards from this pile here. And this one is the moon, and this is the sun. I know that doesn't always sound right, but I did shuffle and it just felt right here. So we are going to start with kind of what should we release in each space. And we are looking at the strength and then the sun and then the 4 fire in our lunar eclipse. The strength is an interesting card because sometimes we just need to realize that we don't have to hold the world up, I think, in this case. And the one I love looking at strength and thinking about the compassionate strength. So what compassion here are you missing? What compassion isn't coming through that you should be using? What strength are you potentially going to lose during the solar eclipse? In the sense of when the sun fades away, what part of your strength will fade away? And does it feel like it's fading already? And how do we rebuild it and refine it? And that's going to be the next cards we pull. But I want you to kind of focus on really just the word strength and what does that look like and what does that mean? I love this depiction of this cat with the birds, and the cat is so unbothered, and the birds can just sit and be with the cat, knowing that this giant thing that is usually a predator is not going to hurt them. And that kind of compassion there is really important to remember. In our lunar eclipse, we have the 4 of fire, and in this moment, we have this kind of nice, this sense of just safety. This sense of we're in a safe place. We get to look and explore safely. So what are we discovering in this? Are we finding out how to explore and discover? What are we going to be able to do with this new energy, this new excitement, this new little thing that we have found? I like that idea of there's something that you're interested in and you've been interested in and you would like to look at it and discover more about it and look into it more. So I'm interested to see what we get for our next cards, which are going to be kind of to see what to do about these. So we have our points of release or our points of what we're going to discover. And I think the strength is really what we're trying to hey, it's okay to not be the strongest or to be at least a quiet strength. And I think with this 4 of fire is more of a discovery of finding out what we need to feel safe. And it's potentially, depending of course on the next card, we might actually be looking at having a look at what makes you why you don't feel this now. What are we looking for, or how do we achieve this? So I'm interested to see what the next cards are. These feel like they do need to be shuffled, so we are going to shuffle. And we're going to kind of just see what kind of action needs to happen next. This could be a point of reflection even. So potentially we need to like sit and reflect with ourselves of like, how do we get to this next step? And that might be a point of sitting, and it might be an actionable step, and we'll kind of just see what the cards say for us, and what Uwula wants us to know. I'm going to be honest though, this card feels being called over here. Yep, and that card is being called over here. All right, perfect. So what we have now is kind of our action discovery cards. Oh, what I'm finding out here for you is that this partial solar eclipse is going to be really, really big. We have 2 major arcana cards, and that already is showing that this is going to be very significant. And yeah, we had that protector of the emperor. So finding what protective means for you might be really important, when protection means. And that could be, interestingly, I think the thought of like preparing for the future, specifically like the foresight of knowing what's coming is what's making me really think. And I think there is this like desire to have this really strong and more predominant strength. So I think we might actually be at this point of compassionate strength. And now how do you show it more? And this is the emperor calling you to have a louder presence, to have a more dominant presence, I guess, a more loud presence. Yeah, it's just like a more forthright, a more, here I am, hello. And I think with the solar eclipse, you're going to want to be well aware of this power that's coming with you. You need to be aware of like, hey, what does this feel like? Hey, what does this adjustment look like? And this is going to be something that you can really work on for a while. The nice thing is that this video is coming out, so you have plenty of time to like start working on this, and then hopefully hit that kind of crux at around the eclipse. And if you're seeing this at a different timeline as well, that's totally fine, because I think you can totally take this and still apply it. Where do you wish to have strength in your life and have the power that you want? And this might be your sign to take that next step into stepping up. This might be your sign that, yes, to take that job take the higher management job, to move up in your job. Or this might be that like, yeah, I can take on a little bit more leadership in my, group that I'm in, or my community class or whatever. This is your sign for that. I think this also finding where you can be. If you're like, I don't know what this would look, find out where that place of leadership is for you. This is your sign to like work on that skill and work on that power. This is your way to kind of be able to like, yeah, I want to do that. Meanwhile, we have in the going off of the spark of safety, we have this Earth Tom, which is so interesting. I think this blends so well with everything else in here, because we have this Earth Tom who is diligently bringing a kitten back into the land who wandered off. And we're trying to just kind of be, I think for this particular thing, having the chaos of life that's probably currently happening with the 4 of fire, is desiring a little bit more routine from the Earth Tom. And maybe that's just waking up at a decent time every day, whatever that time is for you. There is no shame if noon is a good time to wake up for your life. There's no shame in that. Just to be clear, I'm not trying to sit here and be like, well, that's not a reasonable time because it's not 7 a.m., which is perfect for somebody else. Whatever that time is, but create your ritual, your routine that will help you set up for a better day, so that when you come home, you know what's going to happen and you have that safety in it. This will also allow like exploration and stuff to feel more exciting, because you'll kind of have that basis and that like nice firm place to land when you go out to kind of find your spark. It's a very cool elemental thing, because we're trying to have like trying to create a good grounding base to allow yourself to then go off and into the spark of life is really good. Interestingly, the flame and the earth are very opposites. They don't love each other, and so finding this balance is not particularly surprising for the moon's the lunar eclipse to be like, hey, hello, you need to balance this out. That's important. And I think that's kind of fun to see here and kind of poetic, that you are having to balance these elements that do not like each other particularly well. Potentially also is that you might need to be asking for help in this situation. And the Earth Tom is telling you somebody who is a little bit more efficient, routine oriented, who's kind of grounded, might be somebody who you need to ask for help from, or might come into your life and be like, hey, hello, I'm trying to, or I just happen to be here, and they are able to help you out a ton. I do want to pull one more card to hopefully tie all of this together. Kind of what is our overall transformation, or what kind of things we need to tie into everything. This could be quite a few different things. I intended this to be a transformation card, but I think it could be any sort of change. What overall change are we looking at this eclipse season? And we are looking at this card, which is the Hermit. Oh, this is a wonderful eclipse season for you. The Hermit is the sign that also ties with Virgo. And this eclipse season falls into the Virgo sun, and the partial solar eclipse actually happens during a Virgo moon as well. So we're having a lot of strong Virgo energy. And unsurprisingly, the Hermit has come up for you and is reminding you to like look within. Guidance within yourself. And this might also be just like having some time to isolate. Oh, I love this in the background. I think we actually are kind of looking at potentially a crescent here, a nice little moon. So like being aware of the moon cycle right now is probably going to be very helpful for you. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that new moon in Virgo that's coming up would be particularly helpful to you. This is very interesting. I think this is an interesting juxtaposition, though, because I do think that this side is so much more about your inner work, which is so not what the sun is a lot of the time. It's a lot about being big and loud and everything. And that might be your natural inclination, is to kind of be a bit more in your face. And I know we're coming from that compassionate strength, that quieter strength, but this call to action to be this louder strength is probably very appealing to you. And I think with this Hermit is to remind you that, hey, that work still has to come from within, and you still have to balance in with yourself. And I think with this is that we might actually have to look a little bit more outward and see what our community is saying. Now, we didn't have any cup cards come up here, but I don't think that necessarily is a bad thing. I think that we can still, I think it's more of like, you kind of have some community that you're working with already. And there's some ties here with the moon cards of like having multiple cats in both of these cards, whereas there's singular ones in all of the sun ones. And so I think it's an interesting thing to have this Hermit just kind of as a reminder: trust your gut, trust your heart, trust yourself, but also remember that your community is here to help you, especially during the lunar eclipse. And that's going to be kind of right at the beginning of September. I think this is going to be a really cool future, though. I'm really excited for you and what this means, because this is a really good scope. So if you are a journaler, if you're a meditator, things to like really think about here. And this isn't necessarily from the cards. This is more of kind of what I would recommend if you want to take the next step. Take some time to figure out what strength means to you and what you would like it to mean. So what you might traditionally think of what strength is, what you think your strength is, and then looking at what strength can be. Also taking the time with the Hermit card, I think here is that kind of sign to journal, to meditate, to take the time to allow yourself to listen to yourself, listen to your heart, listen to your gut, whatever you need to do. Realign yourself, like really take in everything you've been learning and like soak it in. But on the lunar side, I think we want to be making sure that what is home mean to you? Both these cards strike me as a home feeling. And what does home mean for you? What does that safety mean for you? And these might tie together. This might be that you wish to protect your family. This might be something where it's, I want to protect my friends. I have protection of my my pets, whatever, protection of yourself. And that actually goes into both of these, protecting yourself, like maybe potentially in your relationships and such. And I think we can see all of that happen here. And so in this side for journaling and such, I would recommend that you kind of figure out what home safety, what that all looks like, and then keep track of kind of over time, if you can, over the next month of September, look at what the people in your life and what kind of people they are, and see if you can learn from them, because I think you might see an Earth Tom. You might also have somebody who is the hermit, of this kind of isolated person that you can kind of take in their wisdom of being isolated and pull it in and take it in, and yes, taking that wisdom in for you to your benefit, which is really nice. Yeah, I'm really excited for you, Mystical Cats Tarot vibe. This is a really vibe. The Mystical Cats Tarot deck. Thank you for joining me. I'm losing my sunlight, so I know this isn't particularly great. We gotten a lot darker over the last few minutes here. And thank you, Uwula, for joining us and speaking through the cards. This has been absolutely wonderful. I think there is a beautiful message here of finding the power within and finding how you can use that for everyone else. So thank you, Mystical Cats Tarot Pile and Uwula, for joining me today. I wish you both the best, and I hope everybody has a wonderful eclipse season. Hello, Landscapes Tarot. Thank you for joining me. And Uwula, thank you for joining me as well during this reading, and that you are willing to share your message with us through the Landscapes Tarot. I'm very excited to read for all of you. And we are going to start with a card of what to release and what to reflect upon. Maybe reflect upon, but what are we looking to release during each eclipse? So each solar and the lunar. And the lunar will be happening first chronologically, but sometimes it's good to know that some solar work might need to be happening as well. I don't read flyaways. That one does not feel like it's being called. This one does, though. And keep on going for the sun. Yep. Keep on going for the sun. Yeah, there we are. So we have the Eight of Cups in the sun and the Tower in the moon. All right. I am curious about our action cards based off of this, because already we are dealing with stuff. I think the lunar eclipse is going to be a little bit harder for you, so we're going to start with the Tower here. This is usually kind of a card of rebuilding, and things are tumbling down in a way that we didn't expect them to. Well, sometimes we expected them. Sometimes it's not that surprising. Sometimes we're a little like, yeah, especially hindsight. Hindsight, every time the Tower has shown up for somebody in the past when I've read for them, they kind of immediately go, I know what should have been rebuilt, and I know what's going on with that card, but I maybe in the moment did not realize it, but like looking back, yep, that thing had to come crumbling down for me to rebuild and become better. And so I think it's a really good thing to have this moment to know that you need to allow room for rebuilding in the lunar eclipse, and having this time that, like, hey, deconstruction will have construction to balance it out, but we have to make room for that construction to happen. And that's kind of our releasing and allowing change to happen. Big change is going to be really important for it, and potentially very hard change and emotionally difficult sometimes. So especially with this Eight of Cups, it's a card of emotions, and and it feels like it's kind of affecting this, and that might have some emotionally hard change. And the moon also has a lot of emotional energy to it, that we're going to be looking at some emotional hardship within this change. It's going to be painful. Now, the Eight of Cups that we're going to be looking at is also of change, and sometimes can be this kind of this desire to leave the situation, and maybe it's this like really utter disappointment, various things. So whatever you feel like you're kind of like wishing you were elsewhere, like the train never came, it's starting to overgrow on the train tracks, so why did we ever have it in the first place? Kind of feel that idea of like, oh, why was this a thing? we're going to be looking at that feeling and that emotion. And this is probably going to feel a little bit more surface level, a little more, you're probably going to know exactly where this is dealing with. I find the solar eclipse energy seems to be a little bit more like, I know and I can see what the energy, whereas the moon has that lunar energy is so much more hidden and so much deeper, and potentially the shadow work that might need to happen with this tower is very deep and can be very, very hard to do. I do want to look at our next cards here that will be dealing with kind of like actionable steps or more what's to come. What is to be done in a sense. Potentially it's just even like reflecting on the emotions that are caused by those initial cards. Let me see. I think we're going to cut the deck. Yep, right there. This is the moon. We're going to cut it again. That one's the sun. Just didn't feel quite like it wanted to be straightforward. So, all right. In our lunar, we have the Knight of Cups. Oh, okay. And then we have the One of Cups in the Ace of Cups in the solar, or the solar eclipse. This is very interesting. We have a lot of emotional energy happening. So finding somebody who might be emotionally helpful in this situation is very good. That might be professional help. That might be just having, your best friend around. Please take, the time to reflect and figure out what is best for you, but also knowing that and having the reality check with yourself of, does this need to have a professional involved? I can't make that call for you. I am just sitting here reading cardstock kind of a deal. I am just a tarot reader. I am not a medical licensed professional in any way, shape, or form. So make sure you're kind of paying attention to what you need to do for your life. For this moment of having, I love that we have a bunch of cup cards, because I think there is kind of this deep emotional energy, and I think that you have been trying to escape it. I think that's what we are really seeing now with that Eight of Cups, is that you have been running away from your emotions as much as you can and trying to get off the train tracks as much as you can. And this Ace of Cups is letting you know that you need to allow yourself to have that moment, to be compassionate with yourself and allow yourself to have the emotional burst, in a sense, to allow yourself to fall apart a little bit, and that's okay. And I actually think the Knight of Cups kind of ties in with this, which is why I think you should try to find somebody who might be helpful, is that I think somebody who is very calm, but like the Knight of Cups, I always think of somebody who's very action orientated, who wants to be moving and doing things, but like this is somebody who's probably a little more in touch with their emotions and is willing to have the self-reflection moments, and is probably willing to listen and absorb your emotional thoughts and feelings, and having that time to feel everything and be like, oh, this is what's going on, and be willing to help and take that in from you is going to be really big here. I think there is some warning within the Knight of Cups of, especially while you're, because this is going to be some deep work. This Knight of Cups only feels like it's making this tower even deeper emotionally and more. You need to be before you let your guard down, make sure you're in a safe space with the person you are with. Because sometimes with the Knight of Cups, it's this Prince Charming that can be like too good to be true. Or sometimes they're just not like deep enough. I don't know if I think sometimes with the Disney Prince, this kind of idea is what I'm thinking of, like the Disney Prince or the Prince, I think, from Swan Lake. An old animated movie, and it's not Disney, but and he's just so surface level about everything he likes about the girl, and it's like, come on, like you need to have more than that, more substance to it. And I think with this Knight of Cups is that we want to make sure that we're not losing the depth of conversation and everything. And I think that could also be something that you might have to do, is that you can't just stay at the surface. We have to dive deep. You have to be willing to dive deep, and because whoever is helping you through this. It can't dive deep for you. They can't read your mind. They can't do the work. You have to dive deep. You have to be willing to put in the work to make this rebuild in the way you would like when it's all falling apart. Is that when the pieces come crumbling around you, you're the only person there to really know what's happened and what room fell apart. To know that what you lost in there was, that was the bedroom, that was the bathroom. You can like point out the places in this tower that, what were they? That was part of the stairs that went up, and you're the person who's going to know. And so you have to correctly, and you have to like point that out to the person who's coming in to help you and try to point you out, to guide you through this experience. They can't do that if you're not willing to let them know what's broken. And I love this deep emotional journey that's going to happen. And I'm curious about our last card, which could potentially be here a possible future. It's sometimes just like, what's the transformation like overall going to look like for you, or what kind of things to be aware of within this. And I'm curious what that feels like for you. And it's this card. Okay. And we have the Ace of Pentacles. Oh, I love that we have two aces. So much potential with the aces. The aces are the starts of things. There's so many things that, like, with the start of the cycle, you can really rebuild. And I love that the Ace of Pentacles is showing it, because the Ace of Pentacles is like, once you're rebuilding, this is your first rock. This is going to be your first stone. And it's got so much that can come from it. You have the start of everything starts with that first step. And this is your sign that, like, taking that first physical step to doing all of this action is really, really helpful and really important for you. I like the Ace of Pentacles because it's often a very positive card, in the sense of, like, if you manifest, the manifestations are coming. They're going to do the work and everything, and they're going to work out, and the prosperity is going to, everything's going to prosper. Everything's going to be paying out almost. And the thing is, though, is that you still have to put the work in, and you have to be willing to do all of this other work. So I hope you take this Ace of Pentacles as a motivation to keep working hard. If you were like, I want to do this, this is your sign that, yes, all of the work you put in will pay off, but like, you have to put in the work, because your future is not set in stone. I don't believe that. There are certain things that, we can't change, but boy, is there a lot of stuff in the world that we can change. And I really think that this should be a sign of, like, hey, if you keep on grinding, you're going to get there. You're going to do the work. You're going to be able to rebuild, and you're going to rebuild this place that's so much stronger than what it was. You are going to rebuild yourself to being so much stronger than what you were, but it's so much work. I do want to say, within this process, we have a lot of heart cards, a lot of that emotional heart feelings. We did not have any of the more brainy cards that I kind of sometimes refer to as the swords, and we didn't see any of the wands. And the spark for this is probably not there. That desire, that drive isn't quite there yet. And the logic could get lost in this. And so kind of remembering that your emotional and logic, that brain versus heart, has to still have a balance, but knowing the correct places for your emotions to unleash is really important in this process. And knowing where and when, I think, is going to be very, very important, in that you're going to need more than you think. You're going to need more of that release emotionally than you think. Because you're probably been shoving this to the side for a while. That Eight of Cups suggests kind of that, like, trying to escape all your feelings for quite a bit. And now we're gonna have the, like, pressure cooker moment of, like, exploding. And we don't want that. We want things to just slowly simmer and slowly, like, work themselves off, and try and keep that temperature low all the time. And this is your sign to be working on that and keeping everything down and lower. I don't recommend allowing yourself to keep on running. I think this is your time to take the moment and stop in your tracks and allow everything to, like, fizzle and, like, calm back down again. We don't have to keep the stove on high. We can turn it down, and we can even hopefully eventually turn it off, in the sense of like knowing how to allow the hot steam to be safely released. Thank you so much for letting me read for you today, Landscapes Tarot. Uwula, thank you so much for joining and allowing me to read your messages through the Landscapes Tarot. I really appreciate it. I wish you a good Virgo season, Landscapes Tarot, and a good Eclipse season, and that this can be a step for new beginnings for you. The best of luck. Hello, Mystical Medleys pile, and Uwula, thank you for joining us today. We are going to start with looking at what to release during each eclipse. So the partial solar eclipse and then the total lunar eclipse. And we're going to look at what each is calling for us. And this is the solar. No, the moon's deeper. So the moon, we're going to keep going. And we're just kind of going to see like what needs to be released, what needs to be focused on, what energy is kind of calling to us. I don't usually read flyaways, but that one landed so nicely that I think we're going to do it. All right, so we have the Three of Pentacles and the Six of Swords in each. In the Six of Swords, we're going to start with our sun energy. The solar eclipse is talking about transitioning, kind of moving, a rite of passage. So there's probably something that you feel like you haven't hit the bar. You need to, make this checkpoint kind of a deal where you can't go further, or maybe you're actually like physically moving and that can be over this time. So I think this one's a little bit more straightforward. We're going to kind of see what the action cards, and that might tell us a little bit more about your situation. The Three of Pentacles, we need to be kind of looking at what collaboration and who you might need to be looking into bringing into helping in your situation. I think interestingly with this particular card, I like that we have our like little couple almost, and they have little blueprints, and they're going to this guy and being like, hey, this is the thing we want. And he's like excited about it. He's like, oh, I want to work on that project with you. I would like to join you in this. And that feeling of like, this is the thing to work on, I think is going to be a really cool thing. That collaboration between the two, depending on either side. So if you're approaching somebody, or if you're wanting to be approached, I would keep your eye out for the lunar eclipse and that time range and figuring out. So if you're trying to reach out to somebody, maybe doing so over the lunar eclipse would be a good time to kind of be like, hey, this is my opportunity to take advantage of that. Now, I'm curious what actions or maybe possible reflections we kind of need to do upon this next step. And so I'm curious what we have. This card is calling out for you. Let's see what we have in the solar. The solar is this one. We have the Chariots and the Five of Pentacles. Ooh, all right. So we're skipping. I want to start with over here because we have the 3 to the 5 of Pentacles, which is an interesting thing because we're kind of skipping right over that 4, which is more of a stable card. It's kind of the security card. It's a card of feeling like you've made the right decision. And with the the 5 of Pentacles here, we see that there is an impoverished way. And interestingly though, there's like this warm building behind them that they're kind of refusing to look at and be aware of. And so knowing that your situation is not, don't forget your surroundings to ask for help. And that's I think really here what's interesting is because I don't think you have anybody you can reach out to or anybody that can ask for help. But really what you need to do is kind of swallow your pride and go and ask. You need to be willing to say, hey, I am going to go and ask for help to get out of the cold. I would like to find a place where I feel warm and safe, or at least a place to have a moment of rest. And swallowing your pride to say, yes, I need help can be hard. But also it might be something that this is your sign that yes, you should ask for help. And that person that you've been thinking about asking is the person to ask. This might be your sign for that. On the other side, Okay, so Six of Swords, we were kind of talking about this moment of transition in this like rite of passage. So whatever decision you were thinking about, so if you were like, I'm doing a thing, and so the word transitioning or the word of like going to a new place, this idea of potentially, like, I don't want to say necessarily travel, but potentially travel in like moving or this mental growth in a sense. This decision though, that you have decided to jump into the boat and go across the river, you have to live with that decision, and you need to like fully go with that decision. You need to fully lean into it, and you need to take responsibility and fully like follow through. You have decided to take that course, and you are now having to just live with that, and you need to ride it and keep going. This isn't always comfortable, and it's not always something that we would like to do. Sometimes we are wanting to get off the ride halfway through, but like for your sake, you should just keep going. Keep on keeping on. You need to go the whole way and actually go through. Interesting. I just noticed this. I've never noticed this about this card, but there has the two moons here, and one's smiling and one's frowning, but both are kind of angry about the whole thing. So and he's kind of not sure about this decision, but the Chariot really wants you to know that you have to stick with this decision and you have to follow it through. Now, the lunar eclipse is first in September, whereas the solar eclipse is after it. So this decision that you've potentially made or have committed to, that might have you doing a new adventure or whatever, you are going to be committing to. You need to stick with it and follow it through. And I think we're going to actually, I want to pull the last card here, because I think our final transformation card is going to be a big deal. It's this card here. Ooh, the Three of Cups. Oh yeah, because overall teamwork and collaboration is going to be very important, and I think that sense of community that's going to come from this is good. So overall, and we didn't have any wand cards, which feels okay because I think you have the spark of creativity and stuff within you. We are trying to find that sense of community. You're trying to find that friendship or the relationships that will make you feel a little bit safer and more at home, and that makes a ton of sense with all these decisions. You want this collaborative effort, and you want to feel like you're on a team and you're trying to get to that point. All of that energy there is very, very much makes sense, but just know that the good or bad of an outcome, you still have to stick with your decision and follow through. But remember, there is help out there, and it's sometimes with people who you are already friends with. Sometimes it's with new people. Sometimes you have to, knock on the random door. Not necessarily literally, but potentially figuratively. And all of that has to help you out and make you a bit better of a person. I'm very excited for your growth and hopefully the new relationships you find. This is me, not the cards or Uwula. I do want to say, if you are a journaler, this would be a good time to kind of figure out what things have you been thinking about that would require teamwork or collaborations, and what are your insecurities about them? What are you worried about? And being aware of what those are, and knowing that in order to achieve collaboration, you have to kind of get over some of those worries, and knowing that this is probably going to cause you some great community by putting yourself out there. You might not have the perfect outcome that you wanted, but you will probably be able to make connections and have those connections work out in the future. For the other side, for our solar eclipse, what things are you trying to grow into and logically figure out your place in and grow and become better in, and knowing that when you make that decision and you start on that path, you don't get to turn around in the river. And yeah, you're going to have a moment of hesitation. So taking the time to figure out what kind of things that will help motivate you through. If you can sit down and think about past similar decisions that you've made and figure out what has caused you hesitation, or potentially what has caused you to wish to turn back. Or maybe what did cause you to turn back, and knowing or in thinking about how you can push through those things is going to be really important. And again, I think you're going to find that community on the other bank that is going to be what you wish for and what you have been desiring, which I'm really excited for you. Mystical Medleys, that's just a little shorter of a reading than I meant it for, but I honestly, it doesn't feel like anything wishes to be said more, and Uwula doesn't seem to have any more to add, and so I think it was just a little bit more straightforward with you guys. And so thank you so much for letting me read for you, Mystical Medleys pile. Thank you, Uwula, for joining us and talking and sharing your message. I am so happy that you were able to be with us today, and I wish you the best within this eclipse season, Mystical Medleys pile.